Hello, this is Chuck Sabia. I'm at Salon Artist Gallery at 294 Main Street in downtown Park Forest. And for Black History Month, there's a wonderful exhibit, and we are honored to have artist Patrick Thompson to talk about the work he has exhibited at Salon. So, Patrick, this is a beautiful piece. Tell us about it, please.
Well, the title of this painting is Behold. This is a father holding his infant son in the middle of two different landscapes, and his ancestry and where his lineage is from would be Africa, and his future apparently would be in an urban setting where the father obviously is, but he's letting his son know no matter where you end up being, your past will never change. And that is the concept of this particular piece.
Mm-hmm. And as an abstract artist, we talked a little earlier, and you mentioned texture and abstract within this piece, though depicting an actual event or some history, there's texture, and tell me about that.
Yeah, well, me being an abstract artist, then I take great pleasure in adding a lot of texture to the clothing and the outfit, and actually this is just abstract technique that's on here. It's not a particular design. And I'm using a painting knife when I'm doing this, and some of the landscape, the groundwork in the city portion, in the urban portion, and the grass and marsh work is another form of texturing that I've done. So that is it's a semi-abstract type of piece.
And it's beautiful. And now there are some abstract pieces exhibited.
Yes, it is.
And here's one right here.
This is a intuitive piece, and this is my contribution to Valentine's Day. This is Valentine's month. So red is the color, and so I brought this to the gallery so it can have a Valentine feel, along with all the other beautiful artwork we have in the gallery.
Well, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so this is done in a very intuitive way. I like my work to kind of flow and have a stream, and it has I like to reflect the music. I'm listening to modern jazz mostly when I'm working. And other types of music, but modern jazz mostly especially when I'm doing abstract work. So I have a feel for that type of music. I'm not a musician, however, but I'm a fan, and so my work just takes on a flow of the music.
And how appropriate to have all the pieces of musicians framing your piece.
Yeah, it fits right in.
And then, so we're gonna flow over to this work right here.
Yeah.
As opposed to red, this is blue. It's beautiful.
This is one of my midnight series. I like doing blue. And then blue laced with red. It just, to me, it gives a contrasting feel, and it has a good balance for me.
It's beautiful. Well, let's walk over to the other side where more of your work is exhibited. And as we talked earlier, Patrick, you mentioned, this is spectacular, but you mentioned your career as an architect and engineer, and here we are with abstract art.
Right. This was that was my training. Was engineering and architectural drawing, and which is complete opposite of abstract art. But however, the abstract came on the scene during those years of me doing that type of work. This particular piece here is called Crossroads, and when I was working on it, and it was starting to take on a life of its own, and it was going in these directions, so it took on a look of intersection, traffic intersection.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I completed it, so it can keep that feel of intersection. The red piece, it was starting to take on the life of a red tree, more or less, and so I just embellished it and created space around the main form, so it can have a major heaviness in along the bottom, branching out, going in all directions, and also make sure that I kept a lot of softness as a contrast. So I have a lot of hard paint balanced with a lot of softness, and those the kind of concepts I have in mind when I'm doing the abstract. However, each abstract is done differently. They all take on a different life of their own, and they're mostly intuitive. So it's not a lot of plan. Sometimes I have sketches when I'm preliminary sketches to work from, but most of the time, when I finish the painting, it looks nothing like the sketch that I started with. So.
Well, earlier you mentioned sometimes you start and north becomes south, east becomes west.
That it does.
And you mentioned, engineering, architecture, there's completion, which is the detail is done. You've reached a certain, level of professionalism, if you will.
Yes.
Or professional standards. But with the abstract, you don't know where completion is necessarily, and you talked about maybe less is more at a certain point now that you've been doing this
that is
for
true.
a long time.
Yes, and you asked me earlier, when do you know you're done? Is when you look at it and you say, there's no more to do to it. And that's the cutoff.
So, Patrick, we've focused on these two pieces. There's more? Isn't a couple more pieces, or have we covered?
I think we covered
Okay.
what I have here on display.
Well, it's beautiful, and we recommend coming in and seeing them in person for the depth and textures and vibrancy of all of Patrick's work. I found it fascinating to ask if your art was sort of the outlet when you were, technical drawing with your profession. And you said, even as a child, marbles and fabric. You mentioned your dad, growing up.
Yes. Yeah, my dad was a clothes designer and tailor, and all over the house and in his shop, it was always fabrics and different colors of different things and stages of clothing, especially, he made all my mother and sister's clothes. And so it was always, items that were in different stages of completion. And so I was just exposed to all that growing up. And abstract has just always been with me. I never had a time that I didn't understand design. And I've always loved glass sculpture, glass art, and stained glass. So, all my life, as a very young child. So to be able to create what I love, the images I love, then that's just, it's just a special thing to me.
Well, Patrick, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your artwork. And again, it's at Salon Artist Gallery, and
My pleasure.
it's our pleasure too. So thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.